My name is Jerry Clum. I'm a chiropractor. I graduated from Chiropractic College in 1973, and since that time I have had the opportunity to both practice and to work in teaching and administration in chiropractic education. For the last 28 years, it's been my good fortune to serve as the president of Life Chiropractic College West in Hayward, California. The reason I'm a chiropractor today is the story and the miracle that I'd like to discuss with you. The reality is that when I was 12 years old, my parents were told that I either had a brain tumor or I had a tumor at the optic chiasm, which is an area deep within the brain where centers from the brain come together, cross, and then go out to the eyes, or I had multiple sclerosis. And the prognosis was that there would be a progressive deterioration of my eyesight. I would likely be blind by the time I was 18, and my parents would be better off to get me into Braille school right away. I was 12 years old at the time, and my parents had taken me all over the country. We lived in Buffalo, New York, and we'd gone through New York City, and we'd gone to Cleveland, and we went to the Cleveland clinics and the premier diagnostic institutions of the day. And the conclusion was the same. It was either an optic chiasm issue or possible multiple sclerosis. And this is pre-MRI days, pre-CT scan days. And my parents were devastated. The idea that you're looking at a 12-year-old who will be blind by the time they're 18 is not the prognosis that any parent wants to see. My father, while we had been away for some testing in Cleveland, had missed several appointments to see a chiropractor. And we went back, and I happened to go with him to the office that day, and the fellow asked, he said, "Where you been?" And my dad explained. And it was the end of the day, and my father was the last patient that was being seen. And this chiropractor, his name was Cameron Cassan, a little town called Port Colborne, Ontario, between Buffalo and Toronto, on the shores of Lake Erie. And he sat down with my dad in a second-story office, a 6-chair waiting room, took out a Boyd's pathology, a Gray's anatomy, and a Guyton's physiology, and began to dissect for my father what bilateral optic atrophy of progressive nature and of an idiopathic origin meant. My dad was a smart man. He wasn't a well-educated man, and he was quite accomplished in his business life. But I can remember as a 12-year-old kid sitting in that chair in that waiting room, watching the fear and the suffering drain from my dad's face as this chiropractor explained to my father what these words meant and what the reality of it meant for me as the patient and the person having this problem. And at the end of that conversation, probably the most fateful phrase that ever was uttered in my life is that chiropractor looked at my father and he said, "Don, I don't know if I can help the boy. I guarantee I wouldn't hurt him, and I would love the chance to try." I got my first adjustment that night, and I continued to get adjusted throughout that summer. I was 12 years old at the time. And in the fall, we returned to the ophthalmologist, and literally with a Camel cigarette in one hand and an ophthalmoscope in the other hand in a basement office in his home, this physician explained that this was a miracle, what had happened to this boy. And my father explained that he had been to see a chiropractor. And his response was, "I wouldn't take my dog to a chiropractor." Well, that moment in that chair in the ophthalmologist office is when I decided to be a chiropractor. And I've really had such a tremendous good fortune in that at 12 years old, I don't know that many people have the opportunity to lock on to their life's work, and I did. And I began the pursuit of my degree, and then my career involved and unfolded from that point forward. And my eyesight continued to improve over the course of that summer. And prior to the time that I received those adjustments, my vision was 2800 correctable to 2200. And at the end of that summer, it was 2200 correctable to 2090. And it took until I was about my early 20s that I eventually qualified and my vision improved to the point that I could get a driver's license. Many in my family still think that's quite a mistake on the part of government to have given me that, but the reality is they did, and I do have it today and use it quite a bit. But the point is, as a young boy, that was never a possibility in my life.